you have to be kind of doing something else for inspiration to hit you. Like for me, I take a lot of walks, and that's
Yeah,
usually when I come up with a lot of my ideas is just by taking walks, you know. Of course,
exactly. Yeah.
sometimes I run into the issue of not having a way to write down my ideas. So I like have to try and remember it when then come home and see if how much of it I remember. But that's another issue.
Oh yeah, that's why I guess some people, they go around with like a recording device or their phone and just record when inspiration hits them when they're outside. They just record it on their phones or something. I didn't do that, but it might be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I need to do, but sometimes I just like you never know whenever you're gonna get an idea, you know. So you're just like
Exactly.
you just you know you take a walk and then it hits you and it's like a steam train. You're like, I need a way to write it down. How come I didn't bring my phone with me? You know. Um,
Yeah. Although I found if an idea hits me, then it has enough kind of movement to get me going that I'm gonna remember it when I'm home
exactly.
and I'm gonna, yeah.
You're
So
gonna
maybe
remember
that's a
if
good
it's
way
good.
to
If it's a good enough idea,
exactly,
you'll remember it.
exactly. I think that's the way maybe to find out which ideas will stay and which ones won't.
Yeah, because if you forget it by the time you get home, then it's like, well, it may not be a good enough idea anyway.
Yeah, and the second type of invisible or work, that goes under the surface. And I was reading a lot about women and work and how women do more of that invisible work of making sure that the house is running smoothly. So, you remember to buy toilet paper, you remember this, you remember the appointments, you remember all sorts of things that people may not notice because they're just all in your head, so people don't see that. But if you don't do that, nothing gets done. Your kids don't go to their doctor's appointments, and no one has anything to eat. So, and
Right, yeah. I
women,
mean, there's so much work just into maintaining those domestic duties that even though you may not be like a an official job position, it's still a lot of work just to maintain. I mean, I would struggle with it for sure. It would certainly be a job for me just to be able to
oh, it is.
handle all that.
I do it, and it is really. And my husband is amazing, and he helps. Like he does so much, and it's still hard. So yeah, and also for us as Praxis, we also talked about how we have to do all sorts of work that neurotypicals don't, like the way or at least I'm not sure if I can speak for everyone, probably not, but for me, the keeping score of who is where at which moment, and especially with kids who just whoosh whoosh whoosh, and they're suddenly someplace else, and you're just so confused because they're so fast.
Oh yeah, just trying to keep up with kids. I
And
mean, I'm not a parent myself, so I haven't. I mean, I've encountered that a little bit just from being around kids, but obviously it's not the same thing. But of course, you know, maybe someday if I have a parent, I'll probably really identify with that, relate to that. But I'm sure a lot of dyspraxics who are parents, they probably have to deal with the same thing, and I can only imagine how difficult it must be because kids are really fast and they're unpredictable and you never know, you know, where they are at a given time or what they're gonna do. So it's just like and being a dyspraxic, it's like you have to do what everyone else has to do, but you have to extra work to do as well. Like it's so much extra. You don't get to just like, you know, put it everything off on someone else. You have to do all the responsibilities of being an adult, being a parent, having a job, all that kind of stuff. Um, but it's just so much more of a challenge for you, and there's so much work that you have to put in just to
oh yeah,
maintain just the basic functions of living.
oh yeah, and for example, with kids, for example, how you have this newborn and they can't do anything for themselves, and you struggle with things like buttons. And here you have this baby who cannot help themselves, and you need to change their diaper.
Oh yeah, I
You
don't
know,
know how I'm gonna
the
deal with
amount
that.
of kind of hand movements that you have to do, and when if the baby shifts a bit to the left and the right, you're totally lost because you've planned your movement differently, and now you have to redo it all over again. It's just, I'm just so shocked at how much work that is. Like, it sounds simple. Okay, you change the baby's diaper, or you kind of put on their pajamas. What's the big deal? But it's just so hard. Like, my kids are big now, so they're age 10 and 12. So they can obviously, dress themselves and stuff. So there's much less of that. And I find it much easier now. But when they were little, it was just so hard. Not just because kids are loud. They just are. It's how, crying is how they communicate for a long time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's not just that, just the changing diaper, the unbuttoning, the changing of pajama, clothing for your kid, all those little movements that you have to do. And it's just so hard.
And if you get used to like a certain movement, and then it's like whenever I have to turn my hands and do something or anything that requires a lot of dexterity in the fingers and everything like that, if I have to fold something, like that's always difficult for me because it always feels unnatural,
Yeah,
especially when it's something that's just it's like a different kind of you have to move differently and work with resistance, and it's always like why is my hands not like my brain can't comprehend what my hands are dealing with at that moment.
exactly. So I always get very, very annoyed when I go to the supermarket and buy the flour or the pasta or whatever it is I'm always buying, and they change the packaging. And I know how to open the old packaging because I've done it several times, and I have some muscle memory for that sort of package. But the new packaging is different, and I have to learn it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in like fast food and stuff, and like whenever you get used to like making certain kinds of it's that repetition, that muscle memory, as you say. Um, but then you get a new product, and it's like, oh crap, now I got to learn something new, and I have to go through the whole thing all over again. And it's like
Yeah,
I was just becoming capable at this job, and here you go throwing me a curveball.
yeah, it's definitely that. Yeah, yeah.